than 1 year in the role. The announcement was broadcast on state television. Ibrahim bin Abdulaziz Al Asaf was only appointed in December last year. He'll be replaced by the kingdom's ambassador to Germany, Faisal bin Farhan. The Saudi Minister for Transport has also been replaced. Well, a US Democratic Party senator is blaming Donald Trump for poor diplomacy in solving a diplomatic row in the Middle East. Chris Murphy says Trump's lax approach towards the dispute between Qatar and 4 other Arab nations has led to a stalemate. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Egypt cut diplomatic and trade ties with Qatar in 2017, accusing its government of supporting terrorism. Qatar has denied those allegations.
Elsewhere in the Middle East, things are falling apart fast, due mostly to the Trump administration's incompetence. It started with this nonsensical fracture of relations between Saudi Arabia and another key U.S. Gulf ally, Qatar. It was the kind of disruption that, frankly, would normally be papered over and fixed by a competent U.S. administration, probably in days. But 3 years later, these two countries, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, still aren't talking, largely because we did nothing to fix it.
Well, as protests go on in Hong Kong, journalists say their job is getting harder and harder. They accuse Beijing of gagging debate and say local police are cracking down with unreasonable force. Sarah Clark reports.
Isabella Steger is the Deputy Asia Editor for Quartz Media based in Hong Kong. After a decade in the industry, she says her job is becoming increasingly difficult from China.
Well, get ready, because that time is coming. We're looking at late Thursday night into Friday, and it does have cyclonic, hurricanic, tropical depression, hybrid effects with it. Also, flooding and transportation problems for southeast Texas. Yep, Houston, that's us as well. Man, I've been in a funk for like 5 days. That is so not like me. Okay, see how you got the mixed precipitation dipping down into the south, into Texas, hooking up with the hotter, wetter precipitation. And so, yep, it's going to get wet, it's going to get soggy, and flooding is probably going to happen. Mark it. I mean, sure, yeah. When you look at it like that, that seems kind of crazy. Also, you know, I wouldn't rule out some type of tropical development into the first 10 days of November. Granted, we've gotten extremely lucky and fortunate this hurricane season. But 2 weeks after the 11th Category 5 Hagibis watch, and then a week and a half after that, we are on watch. Hopefully Japan's going to get saved from this big bad wet boy. But look at this freaking monster, man. It's going to get absorbed up into the Canadas and into Alaska. But I think a lot of that precipitation will somehow end up in the United States, the lower 48, at some point. Cranky Weather Guy, King of Weather Twitter, and the guy who won the gold medal this year for weather so far, hurricane season and all. Yucatan disturbance is no slouch either. The two meet over Texas on Thursday. Cue the drum roll. Now, this is purely a matter of opinion, but he says the Northern Rockies feature dropping in is the most interesting feature of the evening. Yeah, who might argue? This is not a hill I'd want to die on anyways. In New York, a little embedded low topped squall moving east, and a similar feature that was retrograding westward towards it has now stalled, likely formed and bounced off the mountains, so to speak. Sweet. So this is the event to watch for the next few days for the lower 48, which would be the initial clash that is sure to be entertaining over Texas. I mean, it is heading to meet a pretty juicy tropical entity. You got this intense feature dropping south to meet it, where the immovable object meets the unstoppable force, with a bunch of asterisks and stuff. Anyway, Cranky Weather Guy has a blog that he does almost daily, and he has a Twitter account as well. I recommend you follow him and always check my suggestions against his, plus your own wide variety of due diligence-y type people stuff. One thing that continues to look good as per occasional Arctic hit and winter storm potential is our SST patterns. Do they hold? Still kind of early to make that call, but it has been. And so, state is very curious. Possibility was called by Anthony Macelio back in August. Now we're checking out the models just to get a gauge. This is the GFS, and you'll notice how it has our big storm moving off the shore. It brings in the low, and like I said, be
sure, there are a lot of
prepared
people
for
who
it
wish
to
it
be
were
like,
anyone
oh my
but
God,
Facebook who are helping to propose this.
That idea is the creation of a global, privately run currency, Libra. Zuckerberg says it will help the billion people around the world without a bank account, the poor. With Libra, they'll be able to send money to others as easy as sending a text message.
And I feel blessed to be in a position where we can make a difference in people's lives.
But he also issued a warning. If we don't do it, China will. Members of Congress were skeptical, though.
But for the richest man in the world to come here and hide behind the poorest people in the world and say that's who you're really trying to help.
Members of Congress pointed to Facebook's long history of abusing its access to the data it already possesses from its social media platforms. If the company also potentially controlled the financial transactions of its 2.7 billion customers, that too would be exploited, they argued. Zuckerberg insisted that data from its cryptocurrency project wouldn't be merged with the data it already uses for profit. Concerns have been raised about the implications of an international currency in a global financial system that's already unstable, even with national currencies and regulation. Libra would be decentralized and surely open to potentially devastating currency speculation and its use by criminals and terrorists, some argue. Zuckerberg was also asked about Facebook in general, all the allegations of misconduct that are being investigated by multiple authorities around the US, from an advertising platform that's allowed companies to discriminate against minorities to turning a blind eye to election interference. It was clear that this was a hard sell. In fact, the committee chairwoman said that just by suggesting Facebook move into finance, it was yet another argument that the company was too big.
Each month, 2.7 billion people use your products. That's over a third of the world's population. That's huge. That's so big that it's clear to me and to anyone who hears this list that perhaps you believe that you're above the law. You have opened up a serious discussion about whether Facebook should be broken up.
Zuckerberg insisted that Libra would not be launched unless financial regulators were satisfied it would not be a source of instability. But his message that his only concern is a level financial playing field was met with skepticism here. Shihab Ratansi, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Hello, this is Al Jazeera, and these are the headlines. The US president says he's lifting sanctions on Turkey following a truce deal in Syria. Donald Trump says the Turkish military offensive has ended thanks to Washington's intervention.
Thank you very much. Turkey, Syria, and all forms of the Kurds have been fighting for centuries. We have done them a great service, and we've done a great job for all of them. And now we're getting out. Long time. We were supposed to be there for 30 days. That was almost 10 years ago. So we're there for 30 days, and now we're leaving. Let someone else fight over this long, blood-stained sand.
Well, the chief of the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces has thanked Moscow for its work to end hostilities in northern Syria in a video conference with Russia's defense minister. Moscow says the leaders discussed the progress of the deal announced by Russia and Turkey on Tuesday. The South Korean Prime Minister and his Japanese counterpart have met in Tokyo at a time of heightened tension. Lee Nak-yeon and Shinzo Abe have agreed that fraying bilateral ties need to be mended. The meeting between the pair represents the highest-level talks since Tokyo curbed imports from South Korea earlier this year. Bolivia's opposition leader is calling for mass protests to continue unless a runoff is held. Carlos Mesa says he has evidence of electoral fraud in Sunday's presidential vote. President Evo Morales has denounced the opposition demonstrations as a coup. Anti-government protests in Chile have become some of the biggest and most violent in nearly 30 years. They originally began over higher rail prices and have now spiraled into a movement against inequality. At least 18 people have been killed in just the past 2 weeks. A police investigation is underway in the United Kingdom after the bodies of 39 people were found in a container truck in a town east of London. Police say the vehicle came to England from Belgium. The 25-year-old truck driver has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Well, those are the headlines. The news continues here on Al Jazeera after the stream. Stay with us.
Licensing, maybe a health department, but 700 rooms is completely unnecessary in this modern time period that we're living in, and most certainly in the late 1800s. It housed 3 branches of government: the executive branch, the mayor's office, its legislature, the Philly City Council, and a substantial portion of the judicial activity in the city: the Orphans Court, First Judicial District, as well as chambers for some criminal judges and some judges of the Philadelphia Municipal Court. Again, 700 rooms. It featured a large clock on each side, larger in diameter than those on Big Ben. And even though they barely finished the building in the early 1900s.
Now, when a terrorist killed 51 people in 2 New Zealand mosques earlier this year, one of the most shocking elements was that the gunman live-streamed himself on Facebook as he carried out the attack. Well, following that incident, the company was put under intense scrutiny to do more to stop such harmful content from being broadcast. But now, the Met Police in the UK have teamed up with Facebook on a project that they hope will prevent such material from ever seeing the light of day. Our technology correspondent Roland Manthorpe has this report, and a warning: it does contain footage of a police training exercise designed to mimic a real terror attack.
This is what the world looks like to a mass shooter. Not a real one, but a Metropolitan Police firearms officer taking part in a training exercise in Kent. It's being filmed from his point of view for the benefit of Facebook, to help the tech giant develop technology to identify live streaming of shootings on its website.
We have highly skilled firearms officers who train in various different situations to address firearms threats. That gives us the opportunity to capture footage from the viewpoint of a shooter. And by sharing that with Facebook, they're going to be able to build algorithms to identify this type of material when it's loaded onto the internet very quickly.
Facebook approached the Metropolitan Police after the Christchurch shooting, when 51 people were killed. The attacker streamed his actions live on the social network, prompting sharp criticism from New Zealand's Prime Minister, although Facebook said the problem was harder than it might appear.
I look at terrorism content every single day, and I can tell you that the Christchurch attack went more viral more quickly than any one piece of propaganda I've ever seen. Facebook removed over 1.5 million pieces of content within the first 24 hours, and we also saw over 800 different variations.
World's largest treehouse burns down in Crossville. It is very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
And not a peep about this civilization in our school education. And in my opinion, this is the simple explanation. And it's not like there's just one map. There's hundreds of maps. And I will never say that I know, only that this seems more plausible in the meantime. And recently, I featured this in my past video, and I wanted to be more specific about these ruins that I found, and encourage any of my Canadian viewers to go check this out if they could. So once again, this is just north of Winnipeg, and we just kind of go up here like we're going to this island, and there's a road going right to the island. And forgive me, I've taken the roads off. Let me put them back on so you can see. This looks like Road 8 or Route 8, and it just takes us right across to across this very anomalous cut corner here. Really fascinating. I didn't notice that last time. And we just kind of move along here, and it's right off of the road. Should be really easy to go explore and investigate this area. And, you know, I didn't feature it as well as I should have in the last video, but this was the monument, or looking like the top of something. I'm not sure. Just really looking like some kind of a ruin. And here, let me just put my little hand over this. So here's the little hand, and look down there, and you can see the exact coordinates if you're using the GPS. And really fascinating. I mean, this is one of the most remarkable ruins I've seen from the Google, as far as exploring sites that really are unknown. And let's just drop ourselves on the road here just so you can have an idea of how close this really is. And I did this a second ago. I'm just going to show you all. Here we go. Very marshy, very swampy, and let's have a look in that direction. So really, you know, if you're just driving by on the road, you would have no idea. I mean, this just looking like nothing. And yet, just on the other side of this little marsh here, let's exit again. So yeah, I mean, the first one is right there, and that little monument is, oh, here it is. So just after the marsh, if you were to walk right along the edge of the marsh, it should take you right to it. And here it is again. Really, really cool. And if I was within 100 miles of this, I'd go check it out immediately. And can we notice ruins from Google? And I think so. Let's just have a look at these Windsor ruins that I think...
Of human forms that go back literally thousands of years.
And Hoagland has found what he believes to be a highly complex geometric relationship between various structures centered around the face. Hoagland claims that the layout of this region, named Cydonia, is similar to what we see in ancient ceremonial complexes on Earth.
There are alignments, there's parallelisms, there's right-angle rectilinearity. They also appear to have a specific geometric relationship to the face, to another massive structure down here, to other structures.
To prove his theory, Hoagland and his colleagues have applied a series of computer image analysis programs, looking for, well, basically things that don't match the surrounding landscape. And the face and a couple of other structures register as anomalies, implying, he says, artificial constructions.
This is the real image, and
is known, not very known.
It's probably enough of that.
The Daily Mail, Andrew Pierce, and the Associate Editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire. Great to see you both. Hello to you. So let's take a look at the front pages then, and the Metro leading with the tragedy in which 39 people thought to be migrants were found dead in a lorry container. Their headline, promised a better life. A similar sentiment in the Eye, dream of a new life, ends in horror. The Telegraph is also leading with that story and the headline, human cargo driven to frozen fate. Ministers were warned 3 years ago about the port where the 39 bodies were found, says the Daily Mail. The investigation into the bodies found in Essex is also on the front page of The Guardian. The Sun leading with the same story, 39 dead in his truck. Lorry migrants froze to death is the headline on the front page of The Times. The Daily Mirror reports on the horrendous conditions those inside the lorry would have faced. Meanwhile, Brexit makes the front of the Daily Express, which has the headline, Fury over EU still deciding our fate. And the Financial Times leads on a restructuring plan at the Japanese telecoms and internet conglomerate, SoftBank, which could mean the loss of 4,000 jobs. And Strictly Come Dancing has been thrown into turmoil by a sickness bug, according to the Daily Star. It's been going round, hasn't it? Definitely. So Andrew Pierce, Kevin Maguire are here, and many of the newspapers leading on.
There's something fishy about these shrimp, and I don't mean the smell of raw seafood in a warm car on a hot day, which... We're on our way to a lab to dissect the shrimp and see if they contain some tiny evidence of a global problem.
Oh yeah, that's a lot.
Little bits of plastic that have managed to spread around the world, and possibly into our food.
Oh wow, that's pretty bizarre.
They're in the air you breathe, the water you drink, and the clothes you wear. Microplastics are bits of plastic roughly defined as smaller than 5 millimeters. Sometimes they're made deliberately, added to cosmetic.
Y'all heard that? Her socks will be up in a couple. Oh, within the next week. Okay. Thank you. That's all I want to know. All right, girl. Is the guy, what did I say? Is the guy from the pier, look at the Instagram pictures. Oh my God, y'all crazy. I can't wait for the sauce too. Girl, for real.
Some people just get on here and that's what they just talk to people in the comments, which is cool. I mean, some people just, they want to have a conversation. What else we got? What else? Let's check this guy.
Logic, even when you were in the house of Jay Wilson, we was trying to speak logic to you. I kept on saying, don't go over there and trash people's statuses. What did you do? You did that. And I said, Tree Dog, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, Brother Jay, I just go for it. You know, because he's made me upset and I go for it. And all I can see is red. And I'm
Tree Dog definitely fucked it up. Alright, who's this?
Before he left.
What? She's got like a colony of bugs in there? Oh, it's fish. Okay. That's pretty tight. Dope fish tank live. I'm into it. What else? Who's this guy? Who's this person?
උන්වහන්සේ ඒ සෙනග සමග ගනුදෙනු කරේ නෑ. පැහැදිලිද? දෙවියන් වහන්සේ සෙනගට පණිවිඩ දුන්නේ නෑ. දෙවියන් වහන්සේ සෙනග බැහැ දකින්න ගියේ නෑ. දෙවියන් වහන්සේ ගනුදෙනු කරේ උන්වහන්සේගේ දාසයා මෝසේ.
Who's this?
Atenção, mas não vou conter não, a partir de amanhã acabou. Mandei uma foto pro Vini, ele me bloqueou. Berserker Gut. É verdade que você comeu a Babi? Não, cara, eu não conto. Eu já cansei de dizer aqui que quando eu saio com uma mulher eu não conto, cara. Deixa eu ver. Muito mais antigres da vida que apareceu aqui. Pelo menos tem mais caráter, né?
Very interesting, very interesting. What else we got?
Эти топики. Вот. Поэтому начинать надо с себя. И потом постепенно, по правилу 10%, приходить к улучшению. И вот нельзя копировать питание звезд спорта, к их образу питания нужно прийти так же постепенно, как и к их образу тренировок. Вот. Вы обратите внимание, какие слова я подбираю.
Well, it's not really too much going on around here. See what they're talking about.
Own home, right? Just imagine how destabilizing and how distressing that becomes on a daily basis. And, you know, it really begs the question, what if that is the goal? Is to continue to keep us so destabilized that we cannot organize, that we cannot really think about how to come together and address sort of the disparities and how citizenship is conceived of in this country. And so I think there's something very Orwellian about, you know, even this idea that, you know, perhaps this is an isolated incident. Perhaps this is just sort of, you know, almost akin to like a conspiracy theory. And it is so common, if you know the history of America, that I think that we need to do a better job of, one, speaking about the impact and the pain that it causes and the long-lasting effects of this types of surveillance.
So you mentioned it is so common. Omar, I want to bring this in and I'll give it to you because Camila mentioned that this is so common given
our history, the history of this country. And so it brought us to this tweet, just tweeted a couple minutes ago. She writes, let's remember that the FBI also had surveillance on Martin Luther King Jr. It's almost like they want to say that we as people of color can't be trusted. So this idea of not being trusted leads me to this tweet that I want to give you, Omar. Precious Heaven says, I agree with the analysis that about paranoia. It's definitely cause to provoke fear, and for what? Something that wasn't even there. So this idea of paranoia, can you talk about what that's like when you know you're not being paranoid? These are things that are actually happening, but the psychological impact on you and your community causes this kind of feeling.
Yeah, I think that's where we started this discussion. I think
MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal, I think. Let me make sure. I'll make sure after this match. Let me see.
This game looks pretty tight.
Yeah, MyFitnessPal. Yep, that's exactly what it's called.
This guy's kind of weird.
AO Jill said you should do gym vlogs. If you guys want to, I will. Sure will.
I don't even think that's live. Who's live? What's going on?
This is what I like to see.
Oh, they're playing poker. Alright. Ladies' night.
Candy raises to 175, and she's going to get everybody to fold.
It says it's live, but it's not actually live. That's what kind of, we straight up live here. You believe that. It is, what time is it? 11:49 Central Time. Okay, hold up. We got early access.
Split screen, can you play against...
Alright, here we go. Now we're talking.
With your friends 1v1. Yes, you can, Cassie. Should I play with 2 controllers right now? No balls? I'll fucking do it. Tell me to do it right now.
Go fucking do it.
How about this? I get to tell you what to do with the right controller if you can memorize it. Okay.
It's just all night mode.
I mean, you could play split screen. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna allow share play with a game that's not released yet, but we could try it. Yeah, it's up to you. I say let's try it off stream. Because I think I need PlayStation Plus to start when I don't have it.
Boys, I think that...
14.
No! Oh. How do I cancel this? Get out. Get out. Get out!
Scron, you wanna know one thing I'm not a fan of how small that the map is in your corner, like...
I don't even look at that anymore. I'm so used to it from the beta now, I don't even look at the mini map.
What's the point? The thing's fucking tiny.
Yeah. And you don't hear gunshots. It's only good for UAV.
Kind of interesting in play mode, but...
Throw an advanced UAV.
Not really that interesting. But it looks interesting. What else we got? I think that's the best kind of live stream game you can do is like pre-release beta shit that people want to see the gameplay before shit comes out. It's like really important. Importante. What else we got? Yeah, I wish we had more. Hold on. What's this? What's this guy doing?
Can't wait to get my hair cut tomorrow, man. I've been looking grimy for a while now.
What is this?
How many pounds? I don't know. I know cryo is big though.
This is extremely
crazy.
This little chat section over here.
Cryo loves to eat. Did you see a ghost or something?
He's just straight up in his room. Anyway, there's like not a lot going on online today. It's not really that exciting. Let's try to reload this joint. See what's going on. Leaked. Shot one. Leaked. One more step to start giveaway. You know what? I don't care. It's not my thing. Live now. See what Fox.
Respond is House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, Alabama Congressman Bradley Byrne, and Jim Jordan, ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Jordan, let's start with you. You heard Chuck Todd there. This is a distraction. You specifically are looking to turn this into a circus. Your response?
Here's the fundamental question. There's one person who started this whole thing, the whistleblower. In the whistleblower's complaint, bullet point number 1, he says, over the past 4 months, more than half a dozen U.S. officials gave me the basis for this complaint. To date, we don't know who any of those people are. So 435 members of the House who represent over 300 million people in this great country, and only one member of Congress, Adam Schiff, knows who the whistleblower is and who those more than half a dozen U.S. officials who gave him the information that formed the basis of his complaint. Why don't we know? More importantly, why don't you know in the media? Why doesn't the American people know? Adam Schiff is doing this unfair partisan process in secret, and our members finally said, enough. We're so frustrated. They reached a boiling point, and these guys marched in and said, we want to know what's going on because we represent 750,000 people back home in our districts, and they'd like to know what's going on because you guys are trying to take out a president 13 months before an election. That's what happened.
Congressman Byrne, this idea of storming the beaches of the impeachment proceeding, whatever we're calling this.
Okay. Not surprised. Not surprised. What's this?
Now, this building is famous because it was where the Inca ruler Atahualpa was captured and kept by the Spanish colonials upon their arrival in Peru. You can see that the structure is megalithic and that the base may also be megalithic. In the vicinity, these two strange, almost perfect circles. What age they're from, I'm not sure at all. They could be colonial Spanish, but look at the very tight joinery of the stonework in this building. It's a volcanic material, not necessarily super hard, but there's absolutely no mortar involved whatsoever. And when we look inside, though there's been a lot of erosion to the surfaces, you can see once again it's megalithic, and here the lintel has multiple facets locking in to the rest of the wall, as well as on the left-hand side, quite complex joinery. No mortar whatsoever, volcanic stone. And then a wooden lintel was put into place here in the doorway, probably by the Spanish colonials. So as far as I know, this is the only megalithic building in Cajamarca, but it's pretty far away from the other ones that we find in the city of Cusco.
Cuscotopia.
And then actually in the city of Cajamarca on a high hill, this ancient megalithic work we can see. This appears to be for the winter and summer solstices. They may be from the Inca time period, or they could be much older. There you can see what is probably a sun symbol on the vertical surface. And of course, the sun and the movement of the sun was very important to the Inca because they were an incredible agricultural civilization. As well, in this location, this intriguing protrusion that looks like it's of a megalithic nature. What its function is, I have no idea, but it's located in the same area as the solstice marker that we just previously saw. And again, the weathering could indicate that it's far older than the Inca. There is an Inca construction right behind it. And then this staircase carved out of the bedrock. With some Inca construction on the top. This could be an Inca work. It's hard to know. Maybe megalithic pre-Inca or Inca. And then these series of flat surfaces, vertical and horizontal, also found in the same area. They as well may be solstice and equinox markers. We couldn't actually figure out what their original function was or who made them. And here I am just for a sense of scale. And now we're going to be going outside the city of Cajamarca. And here we find a site called Otusco, and this is an ancient cemetery. You see these holes, that's where the bones of an individual would have been placed after death. And it's actually quite a vast area. You can see numerous tombs here. Again, the stone is likely the same material, it's volcanic, as we saw in Cajamarca itself. And this is likely very much a pre-Inca construction. And here's a larger one in which a full body, mummified most likely, could have been placed. And this ancient cemetery covers quite a large area. So again, the name of it is Otusco, outside of the city of Cajamarca. And here again, a wall of tombs. And more. And even more. The cemetery covers quite a few acres, and these are carved into a very large series of volcanic outcrops. So again, this is called Otusco, located outside the city of Cajamarca in Peru. Here are upcoming events. In March of 2020, we'll be going to Egypt again to look at megalithic and dynastic sites. Right after that, we're going to Israel to look at some megalithic works and, of course, the holy sites. Then late May, early June, we'll be contacting the desert in Indian Wells, California.
I'm about to sign out.